Oh, for sake. This is One-to-One with Simon Jordan. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep leaving the brilliant questions in the comment section below. But let's get on with this week's show. I think Spurs have a better chance this season of getting inside the top four as it lies with anybody but Antonio Conte. I think you could put Elmer Fudd in there and you'd get a better outcome, because I think the likelihood of the players wanting to respond to Conte, albeit it's irrelevant now because he's gone, was probably zero. Stellini got a couple of decent results. He's not the solution long term, but you're not looking at it long term, you're looking at short term. You're looking at 10 games, manage the outcomes, turn it over to the players, which is the last place I think you should turn it over to in terms of direction and control, but currently that's the best option that you've got. In an ideal world, you'd be able to find a ready-made, oven-baked, or oven-ready, is the overused expression, to slot into place, and whether that becomes available to them with a Nagelsmann opportunity, I don't know. That's a different discussion. But right now, I think the culture of the football club, not so much the culture, the climate, the temperature right now, was so bad between the players and Conte that there was very little point. You don't excuse the players for their very poor performances at times, but you give them that cover by having a manager that clearly doesn't believe in them, and they don't clearly believe in him. And I think that's pretty specific, and I think it's probably what we've heard in the public domain is a fraction of what's been said privately. So whilst it's not ideal, whilst it gives Tottenham the opportunity to be ridiculed and parodied, it will be the better outcome in the short term with Stellini and Ryan Mason holding it together. The players have to step up now, and I think you'll see the results will get better. Now, whether, given their run-in, that's going to be enough to overcome the games in hand that Brighton have over them, and other sides that have over them, like Liverpool, that can potentially take their space, and Newcastle, of course, we will see. But those games have got to be won, and Tottenham are in the current position. So they win their games, others will draw. Tottenham can still control their own destiny, but absolutely, not because I dislike Conte. I was a massive advocate for Conte. I was a massive trumpet blower for the fact they've got a winner in the dugout, but that was the Conte that I thought would come in, not the Conte that came there, and not this argument that he was brought in, wasn't given what he should have been given. He was brought in to make sure Tottenham were competitive, stabilised inside the top four, and maybe nick a cup. So with that in mind, the 200 million quid circa that he's been given to spend is probably commensurate with that. Wrong guy at the wrong time with the wrong outlook, and maybe bereavements and illnesses have poisoned the well and changed his mindset. But categorically, Conte, I think, let himself down. I think he's let Tottenham down. And people can turn around and say he's spoken truth to power, but that's disingenuous because he's playing into a gallery that would have Erik out and Daniel Levy out for whatever it is. If some of those Spurs fans that hate Daniel Levy woke up with a hole in their sock, they'd say that was Daniel Levy's fault for the hole. And going back to the original question, look, I don't think that that it's an ideal scenario, as I've said, but I think it's the right one for the current circumstances. This idea that we need to tell every English player that once they hit a vein of form that they're world class is a false equivalency for me, because Saka is a very good player, the current incumbent of that particular title. We've heard Rashford being called world class this season, whereas the year before he was dreadful. Saka is building and building and building and getting better and better and better and better. But when we talk about world class, we talk about geniuses. We talk about Mbappe. We talk about the young kid at Real Madrid, Vinicius Junior, that's coming through, that I believe are geniuses. And then we talk about Saka, that's a very, very good English player that's building up and may yet become a potential world-class player. What he is at this moment in time is a really clever, bright, young English footballer. To suggest that he is world-class because we're using him as an English player is, as I say, a false equivalency, because we have so few and the standard is much lower than the idea of a world-class player, that I think it's a mischaracterisation. I think it's also unfortunate for players like Rashford and Saka that hit veins of form that are irrepressible and undeniable, that automatically they get elevated to world-class status. And then when their form drops, people start to go after them because they've been mischaracterised in the first place. Good player, very clever player. The potential of being far more than just a winger, can potentially become a number 10 if that's what they see for him, because he can see a pass, he can make a pass, he can obviously create lots of assists for others and score goals himself. So I think he's well on the way to being a really, really, really top-class footballer. I think he's impactful and effective for Arsenal and is becoming so for England. So be glad we've got him. Be glad that we've got a player that has the potential to be one of the top players in the world. But don't start making arguments about world class at this moment in time. It's not necessary. It's unfortunate and unfair, and eventually we'll put him in the way of a different argument. So no, I don't think he's world class right now. Do I think he has the possibility? I'm not sure. I've got very strong opinions from Arsenal fans that are friends of mine that every time he plays well, I get bombarded with, we told you, I had it yesterday. But I still make the same argument that there's a way to go. If you're called up for your country and you don't go for a legitimate reason, then you have a problem because you have to go. So Marcus Rashford would absolutely have been called up if he were fit, would have gone if he were fit. And I think the background noise about him going to America is just brouhaha for no nonsense. What business is it, if anybody's, if a player isn't fit and he's a first team manager, Ten Hag, who has no nonsense from any of these players and has fined Rashford for turning up late for training, is comfortable with him, no doubt, going on a private jet, a Global Express, or in first class to New York in his time off. What difference does it make to anybody? I don't understand why people seem to feel the need to make stories to create contention about someone that's clearly in a rich vein of form, clearly likes playing for his country, clearly is doing fantastically well for Man United. What difference does it make if he's injured and both the international manager and the domestic manager have no issue with it? I know Southgate made some observations about it's no loss, but that's not what he meant. He meant that over previous squads, for a significant period of time, whilst Rashford was either out of form or injured, they managed to cope. And so with that in mind, he was talking about the loss perspective as something they're used to. I have zero issue with it insofar as the manager of the club that he plays at has an issue for it. Of course, I think that players would be better served not flying around the globe when they get 5 minutes off, because they're not under that much duress in terms of their lifestyle and the way that they live. But again, I don't think this is a story. I think it's a non-story, and I think it's mischievous and Machiavellian for people to make it into one. Oh, for sake.
Well, yes, I know what you're thinking, you moronic imbecilic Burke, but of course, I'm going to bet the courage of my convictions here, because I do not want to leave myself in an individual's position. You can't square a circle, and it's complete dollars for donuts. But of course, less of the water boundary, and more of the ask a question. From one Simon to another, a much better looking one I might add, my question for you, you imbecilic moronic Burke, is this. If you could push Piers Morgan or Gary Neville off a cliff, which former Manchester United right back would you push off? And I used to own Crystal Palace, you Burke.
See, I don't know what to make of this Darren Farley impression, because A, I'm clean shaven, B, I don't have blonde hair and I haven't had blonde hair for about 14 years. C, the shape of my glasses are different. He is getting better, I must add, at using some of the dialogue that I use. Burke has been replaced by Herbert, so you need to get updated with that. Dollars for Donuts has been dropped. I consider Piers Morgan and Gary Neville to be cut from the same cloth, like lemons. And you know what happens to lemons, don't you? They jump off cliffs of their own volition, so I don't need to push them. But Darren, it's very flattering for you to do an impression. It doesn't look anything like me. It doesn't sound anything like me. And whilst you're getting better at the colloquialisms that I use, I'm looking for you to up your game. This is not Premier League impersonations. This is, I don't know, League One moving through the gears. But keep it up, son. It's quite flattering. Right, that's it for this week's edition of One to One with Simon Jordan. Don't forget to let me know your views on Conte, Saka being world class, and of course Marcus Rashford's absence. And more importantly, Darren Farley's brilliant off-the-mark impressions. You be the judge. Now, don't forget to keep liking and subscribing. Don't forget to keep leaving the questions in the comment section below. And I will look forward to seeing you next week.